Welcome everyone, welcome to Rice. Welcome, I'm glad you found the auditorium. You're not wandering around out there. I guess if you are, I wouldn't see you, so it's good to see you all here. My name is Jeff Kripal, and this is our Archives of the Impossible 2 conference, symposium, mashup. It's great to see you all here. I know a lot of you. I certainly don't know all of you, but I hope by the end I do. I have a formal introduction here for you. I will read it. The reason I read it is when I try not to read it, I suck. So I'm a much better writer than I am a speaker. So I'll definitely read this. Please laugh at my jokes. Even if they're not funny, that's a good laugh track. It'll make me feel better. Okay, so let's begin now. So let me begin by saying that we are doomed in a good sort of way. What I mean is that there is no way at all we are going to wrap our heads around this thing, what some have called the phenomena and what I want to call the impossible. Maybe our spirits, that part of us of which we are barely aware, can do that, but our heads cannot. Still, we are going to use those heads a lot. We're going to try to think this thing, see what our spirits have to teach our heads, but also what our heads have to teach our spirits. If we are doomed, though, we are doomed together. We did this thing together. And by this thing, I mean the subject of all subjects. I am perfectly aware that there are endless measures of wild talent in the audience, both in person and on screen. And we have about 600 colleagues on screen, by the way. In so many ways, it is perfectly arbitrary who is up here talking and who is out there listening, which means that it is your fault too. Thank you. I do not thank individuals out of some rhetorical duty. There is simply no way we would be here without the labor and commitment of all the people listed in your conference booklet. I will not read those names off, but please read them carefully. If you are physically present, please seek these individuals out in the lobby and over meals and thank them personally. Please tell them what this means to you, unless, of course, you don't like it. Then say nothing. Before I begin my intellectual comments or intellectual spiritual mashup or whatever it is, I want to thank Dean Kathleen Canning, without whose person, capacious intellectual generosity, and extensive office staff, none of this would have happened. I cannot remember the times I thought to myself, oh Jesus, I better not do that. Then Kathleen would say something in the office or at a meeting, and I would think to myself, oh, I can do that. Kathleen gave me permission, authority, freedom, and a voice. Others were similarly liberating in their effects on my mostly conventional superego. I want to single out Elaine Sanchez-Palinkas, John Waterhouse, Emily Stein, Paula Platt, Nicole Switzer, and Diana Hurd. Their professionalism and generous reception of my caffeinated emails and texts early in the morning kept me going. They also sometimes sent me media items that confirmed the importance of what we were doing. They believed in the conference, and that made all the difference. I want to begin this event now with a few basic ideas. You are free, of course, to accept, reject, or nuance them. This will not take long. We have 2 wonderful plenaries that will set our table for the days ahead. I will speak my piece now and then step away. The first thing I want to say or claim is that the impossible constitutes the deepest secret of human creativity and culture. And I do not mean that in a safe, metaphorical, or simple way. I mean that these extreme anomalous experiences, which are not supposed to happen but do all the time, lie somewhere close to the well springs of human civilization in its various modes. From the history of religions to the practice of philosophy, to our moral sensibilities, the arts, the sciences, and the inventions of technology. I mean that human knowledge often bubbles up from the impossible in flashes of inspiration, insight, and altered states of mind and body, after which it is then fashioned, worked out, cultivated, and socialized by individuals to co-create what we want to become. In a metaphor in which I will return soon enough, we are making science fiction movies out of ourselves. I think we should be in awe of that and sort of terrified. We are not just talking about the fantastic, the eerie, and the weird. We are talking about everything with everyone. There are historians, philosophers, and literary critics in this room. There are also physicists, journalists, creative writers, spiritual activists, immunologists, grandmothers, medical doctors, editors, and filmmakers. There are anthropologists, visual artists, screenwriters, lawyers, restaurateurs, astronomers, business professionals, and students. At the end of the day, this one anyway, this is what I mean by a higher education. I mean an order of knowledge that works out of our present disciplines, departments, and schools, yes, but is in no way bound to them, a kind of thinking that is willing to imagine across and beyond all of our present ways of knowing. By a higher education, I mean a way of thinking that recognizes that every order of knowledge is useful and perhaps even necessary, but also historically constructed, and in the end, more than a little arbitrary. Reality is reality. It is not what we think it is. It is not what we sense it is. It is more than we mathematically model it to be. Reality overflows our thinking about it. It is entirely impossible. The idea for this series of conferences and for the archives of the impossibles themselves is to take this impossibility to a new level of sophistication and cultivation. This is the second thing I want to say. As I often remark, we want to mainstream the impossible into the very heart of the academy, not keep relegating it to the cultural margins by calling it bad names, like pseudoscience or anecdote. Such rhetorical put-downs are not only intellectual cop-outs, refusals to think beyond our present thought. Practically speaking, they function to close down the conversation that we most want to have. Admittedly, such categories are sometimes making a perfectly legitimate point, namely that much of what we are talking about here is not conventional science at all. It does not behave. I nevertheless think that such moves are ultimately mistaken and frankly destructive, and for a very simple reason. They make people afraid, and so clamp up. They demean and they dismiss. They do not open things up, they close things down. I work in the heart of the academy. I can tell you with all sincerity that if you want to open up a conversation instead of closing one down, you must make people comfortable and feel safe. Moreover, if you want a conversation to go on for generations and have some real social effect, you must be disciplined about it. We have to be intergenerational. You have to ask for money and endowments, create curricula, found journals, manage grants, support undergraduate and graduate students, and most of all, hire young new faculty who will take the conversation in new directions into future generations. What is more, you also have to express the conversation in effective and accessible cultural forms in the visual arts, creative writing, architecture, film, and popular culture. You have to work hard to make the impossible possible. One works where one is, not where one is not. Rice University is a research university. The three words of our subtitle then are not some minor additions or throwaway lines. Transnationalism, transdisciplinarity, transcendence. Those three big words mean something. The first word, transnationalism, means that the impossible is not restricted to any nation, state, culture, or community. The second, transdisciplinarity, means that all of the departments and schools of the modern university are necessary even to begin to grasp what is at stake here. Third word, transcendence, is meant to carry the notion that such departments and disciplines will ultimately not be enough, that there is something fundamental about the phenomena that escapes and overflows all of our categories and understandings. Dean Canning once remarked that this particular intellectual project is not about thinking outside the box, as people sometimes say, it is about breaking the box. I laughed when Kathleen said that. I laughed because it is true. I would only add to the metaphor, after we break the present box, we need to create new boxes, which our descendants will in turn break. A true historical consciousness and attending humility are crucial here. We have to understand that everything our ancestors did, they did for good reasons. Those efforts may not work for us any longer. I doubt that they do, actually. But we should not now operate with the naive assumption that our own present answers, including our scientific answers, will work for our descendants. They will not. But their answers will not work for their ancestors either. The conversation will go on and on and on. Which brings me back to the impossible as the secret of human creativity and knowledge. The German sociologist of religion, Martin Rayzor, defined the history of religions as a long series of what he called legitimate science fiction. I think Professor Rayzor was right. I have added a certain radicalism to his definition of religion, though, as I think that there are literal, physical, special effects being created for these long-running sci-fi movies. I also think those special effects occur today in moments that are not experienced and so interpreted as religion or religious at all. You will hear many examples of both over the next few days. The impossible, it turns out, emerges in the gaps, in ruptures, traumas, illness, altered states, danger and near death, or just death. It is about endings and beginnings. It is about spiritual and social dislocation. It is about the margin speaking back to the center. The impossible is trying desperately to get our attention. To be honest, I think it is calling us to tell new stories, to understand ourselves and our place in the universe in new ways. But what the impossible becomes is up to us. I mean this in a very specific way. What I mean is that we already have enough dots, enough strange stories, enough pixels appearing on our perceptual and cultural screens. What we most need now are people who can connect those dots and make the pictures pop, whatever those pictures become. Those pictures, I am convinced, will not be singular, will not be one thing, one story, one culture, one truth. It will be many things, many truths, and many stories. What will emerge from the pixels appearing on the screen, in other words, is wildly plural. And I suspect very strongly that if I may speak like this, the impossible intends to be plural. There are endless stories here, endless pictures. That is the reason that I say the impossible is the secret of human creativity and civilization, because it is. Let me say something more about the special effects of the legitimate science fiction movies we have been long making. Please do not imagine that the impossible is only about what we now call culture, about the mental, about some French or German word that sounds especially smart in English, mentalité or Weltanschauung, perhaps. The impossible is also about the physical and the material. It is about what we now call consciousness, yes, but it is also about the material universe, about space, time, matter, energy, and causality. The impossible is about everything. Take just one of these very common special effects. Take precognition. People, particularly wildly creative people, really do have visions and dreams of things that will happen the next day or decades down the life cycle in the physical, historical world. Such moments imply strongly that space and time are not what we imagine at all. Why do we not pursue those implications? Why do we keep imagining that time is a straight causal line, that history only goes one way? Obviously, this is impossible. It is also the case. I have written of paranormal phenomena as the special effects of actual history. I really do think, with Martin Rees wrote again, of the history of human civilization as a kind of long-running science fiction film that is as a millennial-long series of real-world movies. But I would add this, and it is a doozy. These movies display real-world special effects. To be perfectly blunt and outrageous about the matter, people float and fly. People dream a future that has obviously already happened. Objects teleport across a room or fall from a ceiling. People leave their bodies. Weird, very, very weird things happen. But that weirdness is a function of our limited assumptions, not of reality itself. In other words, such things make no sense in our present order of knowledge, and that is the point. So change the order of knowledge. Recent scholarship has borne this point out big time. I could cite dozens, even hundreds of examples now. Let me cite just one. Carlos Ayer's forthcoming They Flew, A History of the Impossible. I borrowed this book doesn't even exist yet, but that's the cover. This big book is about women and men whom literally thousands of people, including doctors, nobility, and a pope, witnessed floating or flying in the 15th, 16th, and 17th centuries. It is, I believe, an academic game changer because it forces the question. Ayer engages in extensive primary textual work, especially in the Latin, Italian, and Spanish sources, practices the historian's bracketing of the obvious truth questions. Well, did these people fly or not? And sincerely goes down all the skeptical pathways, including significantly demonological ones. Still, it is finally very difficult to shake the sense that Ayer's deeper conclusion is secreted or just shouted in the title. They flew. And that changes everything. Before I close to begin, let me make some predictions and promises, always a tricky thing. I have noticed over the years that there is a very specific professional realm from which the impossible receives some of the most enthusiastic support. The arts. Artists are weird. That's a good thing. So are their curators and collectors, another good thing. There is just something about the arts and the impossible. I suspect again that it has something fundamental to do with the secret of human creativity. I could speak about many museum exhibitions, professional artists and curators at this moment, about medieval art, but also about modern art. But I will not. I simply want to say that I would like to organize the next Archives of the Impossible conference around the arts and with the artists themselves, some of whom are in this audience. My colleague, the artist and academic John Sparagana of the Department of the Visual and Dramatic Arts here at Rice has promised to co-host this venture with me. Thank you, John, and I am sorry. In this same artistic spirit, let me also say that I'm about to venture out into film and television with the impossible. I joked long ago about university scholarship and publishing that I was tired of writing for 50 people in the world, 25 of whom hated me. That was almost 20 years ago now. It took that long to get here and through many paths and ways, including cinematic ones with my friend, neighbor, and professional colleague, the filmmaker Scott Hewlin-Jones, who is, I say sitting here, but I think he's standing there with us this afternoon. I also want to acknowledge Scott Steindorf and Dylan Russell of Stone Village Television in the audience. Scott, Dylan, and I are about to venture into conceiving and shooting a television series about the Archives of the Impossible in the coming months, and I sincerely hope the coming years. My entertainment lawyer, Keith Jasma, a Rice alumnus, has helped immeasurably on all this. I kid you not, Keith was Sammy the Owl, our own Rice University mascot. Don't get me going on owls and the impossible. Our friend and colleague Mike Cleland has written entire books about that connection. But please wish us well. We need you. Finally, the director of the John E. Mack Institute, Karen Austin, whom you will meet up on this stage tomorrow, puts the matter this way. We're going to break things. Probably a lot of things. I would add, including that academic box about which Dean Canning spoke. So let us begin breaking things, not for the sake of breaking things, but toward a higher education. Thank you.